Okay, with that, then let's open this fifth session of the hearing in the case. We face a threshold procedural issue. The tribunal is mindful of the emails we received rather late last night and has discussed them beginning rather early this morning. The tribunal must inform you that we are simply not in a position, because of medical concerns that we've tried to make clear throughout the course of this hearing, to extend the hearing today. So I'm sorry, that is just not something that is possible for us to do. That said, we're then left with a situation. We understand that respondents' wish is that a couple of their witnesses travel over the weekend, but again, that's a challenge, but it's not a challenge the tribunal has created. We face this situation because of choices that have been made in allocating time for some rather lengthy cross-examinations, and so we've simply reached the point where we have a last day. And if these witnesses are not going to be available beyond today, then I think we have a problem, because it is incumbent upon the respondent under the rule for securing the appearance of its own witnesses in the hearing when they have been polled. That's 19.5 of P01. So I'm afraid we're going to have to throw the ball back in your court. I respect the effort that was made, obviously, late at night to try to find a solution, but for fairly compelling medical reasons, we are simply not able to accommodate that request. I'm sorry, we are where we are, and so we put it back to you. Now, with respect to witnesses' travel plans, that obviously we don't control that, but I think it might behoove respondent to take a look at that issue and see whether there's some room to give, because they do have the obligation under the rule to assure the appearance of their witnesses. So I'm sorry, but that's where we are.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one comment on that. Today we are, as was announced in the email, going to start with Mr. Saavedra and then move on to Mr. Four. Now, from our perspective, we will be having a bit of a clearer picture on whether we actually do need to cross-examine Mr. Leon during the course of the day. And therefore this issue may go away, but we estimate around mid-afternoon will be a time when we can sort of determine that.
Well, that's obviously your call, sir. Mr. Leon is in some respects one of the few witnesses before us who actually has some first-hand knowledge of these events. A lot of the other testimony we've gotten has been derivative from what Mr. Leon has said to people in the reports he has written. So that's, you know, it's your call, but his testimony is of a witness who has some first-hand experience.
Many thanks. We'll take that into consideration.
All right, so shall we move to the first witness? And this is Mr. Saavedra, who I understand is no longer a government official. Is that correct?
That's not the case, Mr. Chairman. He is a government official.
He is now a government official. Okay. Good morning, sir, and welcome. Can you hear me?
No microphone.
Okay. Sí. Señor presidente,
Good morning, Mr. President. I hear you perfectly.
Appreciate your being with us this morning. You should have before you an affirmation or declaration. Do you see that, sir? I believe it's a plastic-coated piece of paper.
¿será?
We will find your witness declaration
So-
while that's being taken care of. Good. There we are.
Thank you.
Can you read out loud that affirmation, please?
I solemnly declare upon my honor and conscience that I shall speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you, sir. And you will remain subject to that undertaking throughout the proceeding. Now, are you familiar with the procedure that would be followed? You will first be asked a short series of questions by counsel for Peru. You will then be cross-examined by counsel for the claimant. And you then may be asked some additional questions by counsel for Peru. Are you comfortable with that procedure, sir?
Yes, I do feel comfortable, Mr. President, with the procedure you just outlined.
Thank you. Now, if at any time you feel the need to take a break, let us know and we will try to accommodate.
Así lo haré.
I shall do so, sir.
Thank you. All right, shall we turn to the direct examination?
Buenos días, señor Saavedra.
Good morning, Mr. Saavedra. You have your witness statement on the table in front of you. It's dated 15 March 2022. I think you have it in hand. I'd ask you to look at it quickly, particularly the last page, and to please confirm that this is your witness statement in this case, that that is your signature, and that you ratify the content of this witness statement.
Señor, buenos días. Look at
Good morning. What I have here is the statement by Fernando Trigoso. Just a second, please.
Gracias. Muchas gracias.
Mr. President, this is the interpreter. If you could ask Mr. Granet to make sure he stays close to the mic, otherwise there's a lot of extraneous sound. Thank you so much.
Sí, es mi declaración.
Yes, this is my statement in Spanish. Would you like to make any correction to your statement? No. Thank you. We don't have any more questions at this time. Good morning, Mr. Saavedra. My name is Jaime Gallego. We're going to have a conversation today. I'm going to be putting questions to you. We have a very limited time. The questions that I'm going to put to you will often ask for a yes or no answer. I'll ask you to please focus on the question and that you answer the question very concisely. Of course, you could elaborate, but I would ask you to please focus on the question and answer it. That way, we'll be able to move forward. I understand that you are a public official today. Yes, I'm the director at the Ministry for the Affairs of Women and Vulnerable Persons. I understand that you've read the relevant parts of the claim, the memorial, and the statement by Luis Felipe Bravo, the first one. That's what you said in the only statement you've made here. I have read, because it was put to me to prepare for coming here, the statement by Mr. Bravo. And did you read both of the statements by him? Yes. And did you not have anything to add in the wake of the second statement by Mr. Bravo, since you've only filed one statement? It wasn't for me to answer whether I agreed or not with Mr. Bravo's statement. He does say some things which, no doubt, through this session we'll be able to clarify, because he does say some things that are out of context. He extrapolated, so to speak. But you decided in due course not to present a written statement responding to Mr. Bravo's second statement, right? Of course, there is a statement here, the second one, in which I have said some things regarding Mr. Bravo's witness statement. You presented a second statement? Of course, it's right here, isn't this it? That is the only statement you've presented that you have before you. This is the statement that I made after I read Mr. Bravo's statement. Of course. Well, let's have certain rules of the game. There are interpreters who are interpreting our conversation into English. I'm going to speak. We'll take a brief pause. Then you'll speak, and vice versa. We can't be speaking at the same time. You'll see I'm taking a brief pause, and I'll ask you to do the same, to make a brief pause before you speak. After you filed your statement, Mr. Bravo, in turn, presented a second statement, and you did not present a statement responding to what Mr. Bravo said in his second statement, correct? As regards Mr. Bravo's statement, well, he made a statement, and then I made a statement, which is the one that is signed right here. And
The second statement. Sorry, I've transgressed.
Thank you, sir. I thought I'd established it, but I
Perhaps he
will.
hasn't seen the second statement.
I thought I'd established that he had,
might
but
have.
I maybe I haven't. Thank you for that, sir. ¿Ha visto la segunda?
have you seen Mr. Bravo's second statement? Yes. You were Vice Minister for Public Order of the Ministry of Interior from October 2019 to April 2020, correct? Yes, I was Vice Minister for Internal Order from the 31st of October 2018 until the 19th of November 2020. Very well. And during that time, did you give written instructions to your subordinates about the social conflict that had Paran and Lupaka at loggerheads? Written provisions? Instructions? Or any type of information, say instructions to your subordinates about how they should proceed. Peru has many conflicts, and Lupaka, which I didn't know as Lupaka at the time, I knew it as Minera Invicta, it came to my awareness through the information that the Bureau that looks at conflict prevention passed on to the Vice Minister. The Vice Minister then follows up on what he's told and then is constantly reporting. The need for this information is in tandem with the partner of conflict prevention at the Ministry of Interior to the partner of mining and to the office that has to do with the National Police. Now, the information goes along those two vectors, the information that is from the conflict prevention unit. So I had asked you about instructions that you gave your subordinates, but you've told me something else. You have told me that you received information constantly regarding this conflict. Have I understood properly? Yes, I received information on that matter as on others, and all that one says in those meetings, one must continue monitoring because that is the function based on the vision of public order, that to see to it that it not continue to be a governability issue. And that's where the function of the ministry and vice ministry is to give instructions when it's being reported to them. If it's said that there's going to be a meeting on day X, they need to say, well, you're going to have to attend that meeting on day X. And did you report to the minister in turn on this conflict? As is natural, the information that comes to a vice minister has to be reported to the minister. And did you do so in writing? Yes, communications that run in tandem, information that goes to the ministry. Now, in this case, when this meeting came with Lupaka, I had to communicate to the minister that it had been addressed. I went to address that case because I had to address it. They didn't direct it to me, just as I had to deal with others, other mining companies, such as Anglo-American, Chocan, Bomba, or politicians who would, politicians who would come to have meetings with the minister, and the minister might not be able to handle it, and he would have one of the vice ministers, there were two vice ministers, to receive that person who would come to the vice ministry. For one of the functions of the minister is to receive people who are seeking protection or who come to the minister with some matter that requires that needs to be addressed. So I understand that you would report to the minister for him to make the corresponding decisions with respect to this case. Is that right? Of the information, well, there's a meeting of the Council of Ministers on Wednesdays. And at that meeting of the Council of Ministers, the information that was produced within the Ministry of Interior has to be reported so that the minister can then share it with his peers who are at that meeting of the Council of Ministers. So information of this nature, like any other, should be made known there because, in addition, if you allow me to, please, a vice minister, when handling a requirement of this nature, does not do so alone. He is accompanied by other members who deal with the matter. Plus, as a matter of transparency, which is a national law, the Prime Minister has access to the meeting that we, the vice ministers, have. They keep tabs on us. It's not just that there's a meeting and that's it. Rather, there is a follow-up on what's discussed in those meetings. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you very much, Mr. Saavedra. How often was there discussion of the Invicta case at the cabinet level? I don't know. And in turn, you would give instructions to your subordinates about how they should proceed within the Ministry of Interior in relation to this Invicta case? A vice minister doesn't have to set out such provisions. There is a provision which is the Regulation on Organization and Functioning, and all public officials are subject to the ROF. And the Director for Prevention had to do so. That is the Regulation on Organization and Functions. I understand that. But it's not a legal question, it's a practical question. You were being sent information, and then you would forward it to the minister. There would be discussions, I imagine, to make some decision, and then one would have to implement that decision. Therefore, logically, there would have to be a communication to the subordinates. Did you give instructions to your subordinates in relation to this specific case in terms of how they should proceed? In this specific case, like any other investment, because we are concerned about investment in the country, which we as a country need, well, all of us officials who work in the state are obligated to follow up on and provide instructions when appropriate based on their authority. Of course, thank you. And it would be only logical that such instructions be put in writing. There's not a need to put them in writing. We come to a meeting like this where people talk, and information is shared, and a decision is made, and then it has to be carried out. It doesn't need to be in writing. Imagine so many cases only when the case so merits, when the situation has gone beyond, and the situation has gone beyond a certain limit, and there's no action, and you've come to learn about it, and you need to inform that unit, well, obviously they're going to say, we are following up on the case. Excuse me, but you were vice minister. That's a very high-level position within the Ministry of Interior. Your decisions are not, or instructions are not an informal matter, and it's not a small ministry, the Ministry of Interior. So if you make a decision, your subordinates within the Ministry of Interior need to know about it. Isn't it only logical that you would issue a written decision, or at least that there would be some minutes or report that would be a written verification of your decision? What we do are internal notes where it is said that there must be follow-up, and there's already a decision on that, and then one works on that basis. From the time that one learns of it and then reports, then the document goes back and says, you should follow up and report. There's nothing else to add, just continue monitoring and following up on the situation. And that is what's issued, and that is what's written. Yeah, thank you very much. And I understand that with respect to this case, there were some provisions that were pulled together in minutes or some other, memorialized in some other form that would reflect your decisions, correct? Of course, there are documents on that. And there are documents on the meeting, the 24th, where a document was drawn up in order for there to be prevention on the issues. It's And that makes traceability possible. And likewise, with respect to the decisions of the minister. With respect to the minister, I don't know. I'm here to answer as for my position as vice minister. Thank you. At paragraph 14, let's try to proceed more or less quickly. If you want us to look at a document or your statement, we can do so, but we have very limited time. And if I make reference to your statement, if you have any doubt about it at any time, we'll take a look at it. In your statement, paragraph 14 says that there are two vice ministerial offices, one for internal order and the other for public security, correct? The Ministry of Interior has two vice ministries, public order and or internal order and public security. Here, we could have, you could have been much shorter. Instead of repeating the question, you could have simply said yes, and then that would help us move forward a little more quickly. Thank you. Thank you. We've already established that you were Vice Minister for Internal Order. I understand that you were also Vice Minister for Public Security, the other Vice Ministry from November of 2018 to April of 2019. Yes. If you allow me to. Wait a second. You didn't mention it in your statement, and so the question is why? Because there I was a Vice Minister for Public Security and not Internal Order. I was addressed as, well, I was acting while they, until they designate the person who is to hold the position, they decide that it's the Vice Minister or it could be the Secretary General. So it doesn't necessarily have to be so. So I handled it because it was an internal, it was a matter of, because I acted in my competence as Internal Order Vice Minister, not Public Security Vice Minister. At any rate, from November of 2018 to April of 2019, you held both Vice Ministries, both Vice Minister positions in the two Vice Ministries, the Ministry of Interior. That's right. And as Vice Minister for Internal Order, I understand that you were in charge of planning, directing, and supervising the functional activity of the Ministry of Interior in respect of internal order and internal security, correct? Yes. And as part of that function, your duty was to design and formulate guidelines and strategies to address social conflict within the scope of your authority, correct? Yes. And you were in charge of, or you had the initiative of guiding the state with regard to strategic guidelines relating to social conflict, correct? Yes. What I'd like to note here in answering your question is that what the office does that has to do with conflicts is prevention, and this from a normative standpoint that is not involved in intervening in respect of public policy that has to do with that part, because the part of public policy in charge of implementation goes through the national police. There is some confusion when one begins to speak of the Office of Internal Order that it is the bureau that is to carry out operational plans. No, they sound the alert, they follow up, so that those who are in charge of the functional responsibility for responding to that conflict can address such conflicts within the scope of their authority. Thank you, Mr. Saavedra. At any rate, the General Bureau for Public Order, which it was directly under you, within the Ministry of Interior, has as the function propose, conduct, and supervise the implementation of public policies, plans, programs, strategies, and actions for preventing and providing solutions to social conflicts. Is that not so? I'm reading here directly from a regulation, which we can look at if you'd like, but I suppose that you already have experience in this. Can you confirm that for me? What the General Office for Conflict Prevention does is alert, communicate, follow the guidelines that exist when there are dialogues. That is the work that must be done by the Office for Prevention. The strategy is that there's a dialogue, and that dialogue has to continue to provide communication and follow-up as appropriate. So you don't have a duty to supervise the application of policies and providing solutions to social conflicts? From the normative side, yes. From the executive side, or in terms of implementation, no. At any rate, the General Office for Public Order is in charge of guaranteeing internal order and would be supervising the police. Is that not so? No. Allow me, please. The interior sector is made up of the Vice Ministries of Public Security and Internal Order, and it has under it the National Police, the SUCAME, which has to do with weapons. It has to do with immigration, and it has to do with the firefighter services. It's not that the minister is the national commander of the national police. The aspect of public policy, its design, supervision, and direction goes through the ministry. The public policy, when it comes to implementation, there's a pertinent article of the regulation. What it says there in terms of the function, well, it explicitly notes that the public policy in terms of its implementation corresponds to the National Police of Peru. Thank you. Thank you. Let us turn to tab 50 at the binder you have before you.
This is what you have, I imagine, in English first and then in Spanish. Please look for the blue page. Starting in that blue page, you are going to have it in Spanish. And here we are looking for Article 83. Do you have it at page 47 of the Supreme Decree? Yes. 04/2017. So here you have the Supreme Decree that approves all of the roles, Article 83. Yes, I do have it here in front of me. You can see that this office is the one in charge of proposing, promoting, formulating, conducting, supervising, and monitoring the compliance of public order policies and strategies on the prevention and management of social conflicts in coordination with the bodies of the sector. That would be the Ministry of the Interior working with the Directorate General of Public Order. And also, as well as designing and executing actions that contribute to the development of social organizations, rural and native communities, in order to strengthen their contribution to the prevention of social conflicts and those related to social peace. It reports hierarchically to you, the Vice Minister. And now let us look at a different provision that we find at 54. This is the legislative decree number 1266, Article A1. I think you have it in Spanish also. And here it is referring to your powers. And I wanted to show you 8.1. And you, at page 10 of 19, page 10 of 19, and there it says that you were in charge of 1, to propose and lead the internal order policy of the interior sector and the process of formulating the general policy to guarantee through the Peruvian National Police internal order and public order, the fight against organized crime, the protection of strategic investments, as well as the surveillance and control of national borders in accordance with state police policy. And I just wanted to highlight that this is something that you need to do through the National Police of Peru. So I understand that there needs to be some sort of coordination with the police. I thank you for the question, and let me explain to you. Public policies are designed by those who have the ability to do so within the state, as stated by the minister, and the specific sectors have to look into specific policies, and the Ministry of the Interior has to develop that type of policies. And that's how during my tenure we looked into the public policy against organized crime, against drugs, against terrorism. And as to the implementation stages of the policies, that is within the realm of each sector, within the area of their powers. Public policy is just not one for the whole sector. The national policy sometimes works with the national police, but the part of execution, implementation, this is related to the national police. I thank you, Mr. Saavedra. So I understand that the national police has certain autonomy, but that you are determining the policies to be followed by the police, correct? This is not determined by the vice minister, rather the Peruvian state, the party that communicates them also with multi-sectorial participation, because for this we have a multi-sectorial provisional commission that works on this with all of the sectors, and they have the obligation to contribute their input to the design, and then the vice minister puts all of this together, organizes them, analyzes them, and then Once they all say that they agree, this is approved by the Peruvian state. This is not approved by the vice minister. And at any rate, when then the policy is implemented, and as part of the implementation, we have also the various actors. And if there is any doubt regarding a policy, let's say that the police thinks that there is a need to participate, but there is a specific policy regarding that, shouldn't that be consulted with the politicians to see whether there is a need to intervene because of a specific policy? I thank you for your question, and let me explain to you the following. Once that policy has been consulted and compiled, it goes through a system that is called CCB. The CCB, that is to say the Council of Vice Ministers and all of the sectors and all of the ministers work on this. If one of the elements that is mentioned there is related to an internal situation, it is done at that point in time. It is not done any time. Every time that this happens, it is done precisely at that moment.
Because I didn't understand the answer.
Please. Por favor, le pido que me
I am going to ask you to answer my question. You determine policies at a general level. Then the police has to implement these policies. If the police sees that an intervention, a call to action, may be against a policy, then that would be taken up to your level for you to determine whether the policy should be observed or whether there is an exception, or an exception could be introduced for that policy. Is the answer yes or no? And please be brief. No, that's the way it is, because the police is not the only one. We don't have just one police. We have a justice system that governs the country, and if the prosecutor that has to do with crime, because the police looks into crime. If there is a situation, there has to be a participation by the judiciary and also by the prosecutor's office. So on the one hand, you may have a policy that has some gray areas, and the police has full autonomy to proceed as they deem appropriate. Even if that policy has some gray areas and there could be some doubt as to the intervention based on that policy. Please be brief. Yes, thank you. Yes, at that point in time, the police does whatever the law provides for. If at that point in time one of the parties feels that they have been impacted, they resort to the public, to the ministry or to the judiciary. Thank you. I understand that the answer was no, that the police forces would not go to you, rather that this would not be addressed by you, rather that the police would implement their plan in an autonomous manner. Is this correct? The national police does not report to the vice minister, therefore they do not need to tell me something like that. If they consider that something has to be solved, they can resort to the prosecutor or to the public prosecutor or to the prosecutor. I am having some issues to understand your answers to my questions. You are not answering clearly. I continue. Even though we have not found an answer to this question. Also, as part of your jurisdiction, you coordinated the relationship with the rural population, correct? Yes, the rural rondas. Yes, we have no control. We just train. We have no control on the rural rounds. Yes, but you do coordinate the relationship between the office, the Ministry of the Interior, and the rural population. No, it is not the Vice Minister. It is the relationship with the communities is established with the main office, the office that is in charge of that area. So for us to have those conversations with the rural population, we need to have the rural community that is represented. And for that, we have the participation to make sure that there is no violation of the rights of those people that are trained. So let's continue. I understand that you were also part of the National Peruvian Police between 1969 and 2011. Is that correct? During 32 years. Well, I was a police officer for 32 years, and for 22 years I have been outside the institution. So you became colonel. That is the highest rank, correct? Yes, that is the highest rank, correct? Yes. And you'd agree with me that the police forces have the end of guaranteeing, maintaining, and reestablishing internal order, correct? Yes. And they also need to guarantee compliance with the laws and also the safety of public assets and private assets, correct? Yes. And therefore the police has to also intervene by force in certain assumption in certain areas. Well, once the police hears of a situation, not all of the events that get to the police will require a police operation. Sometimes there is verification of the fact and also the determination of the party that is involved in this. So therefore, just the knowledge that the police may have does not entail a police operation. I thank you, but please listen to my question. I told you that the police is compelled to participate using the force in certain situations. Is that correct? Yes or no? Yes. Now let us look at those assumptions or hypotheses. This has also been part of a police report by Dr. Meni, who is an expert in criminal law. We're going to look at tab number 8. We're going to see the report there. And this is at page 27, I believe. I apologize. I don't think there are pages there, but this is paragraph 72. Are you looking at paragraph 72? And then that paragraph continues on the next page, and towards the end, before the ABCD listing, it says that the National Peruvian Police should resort to force, and then you have a list. You have a list based on Decree 1186, Article 8.2. You're aware of this, correct? I am not an attorney. I do not know what Mr. Meni is mentioning. Well, you were a colonel with the police, and you were with the police forces for 32 years, I imagine that you should know at least when participation is warranted. Well, I was a police officer. I'm no longer a police officer. And if you allow me, police officers please come closer. I was saying that I am not a lawyer and I cannot refer to Mr. Mene's opinion. Thank you. Now, if there is an obvious crime, so you are talking about something with the intent, do you have to intervene? Yes. Again, if it is obvious, again, it is obvious that there is a crime. Is there a violation before the eyes of a police officer? Should there be an action, a response, or should the police wait for a judicial order? Yes, they need to participate. They need to do something whenever it is obvious. Now, if there is any danger of a crime being committed, and that is something that the police officer is seeing, should there be intervention or not? You said yes, if rather. I'm asking you to answer. Here it says to prevent crimes and violations, and here I'm asking you because you were a police officer for 32 years and then a vice minister with the Minister of the Interior. To prevent a crime, should the police officer intervene or should the person just wait to receive a judicial order? You have said it very clearly. Again, it is prevention is different from the actual crime. So we are looking at the listing of this decree. I am not a lawyer, but I can, as a former police officer, I can say that police officers know that they need to minimize risks and that no one is going to act just because they are talking about a fact or to prevent a fact that may happen. If it is something unavoidable, of course they have to intervene because it is a glaring, flagrant crime. And if someone presents any resistance to the authority, there should be an intervention. Well, if the crime is obvious, and we're talking again about a crime that is flagrant, then there has to be participation by the police. So you're telling me that if a police officer sees that there may be a crime in the near future, you are telling me that the officer has to wait to receive a judicial order rather than prevent that crime? In that case, you're talking about the future. Who can ascertain that there will be a crime in the future? Let us move on. Now, regarding each level of opposition, regarding the opposition of a person to intervene and the use of force, the force used should be in accordance with the opposition received or with the force that is being exerted against the actual officer. Is that correct? Well, once again, I am not a lawyer, and I cannot give you an opinion about that. Very well, thank you. And you were telling me that prior to the meeting with Mr. Bravo, that was in January 2018, you were informed in 2018 about the conflict I had to know that there was a conflict. I had to know about it, and there was evidence already that something was going on, and they had participated on the 14th, and on the 14th, when the police showed up there, they accepted the situation, and there are also minutes with the signature of a person from the company together with those who had been there part of the protest, and they took the road because they considered that it was their road. Very well. I think you have referred to the 14th. I think it is the 14th, October 14th, 2018. We're now going to talk about that a little bit. I understand that you were also told about the background of this conflict, that there was an invasion or that there was a protest in accordance with the terms used by Paran in June 2018, correct? Were you aware of this, yes or no? I learned about this later on because I was not the vice minister. Very well. Now let us look at tab 15, please, in the binder that you have there in front of you. And if you look at this is C-170. And this is a request for police support dated October 17th, 2018, to avoid vandalism and also possible attacks against our facilities. And this was by community members of Paran. And this is being addressed to the police officer of Lima, Gaston Cesar Rodriguez Limo. Were you aware of this document? Did you know of this document? No. Thank you. At any rate, we can see that there was some action, or at least something was done. There was a process for this request, for this application. We are going to see at tab 16. I understand that this is something that you did not receive because it was quite local within the police forces. And here the colonel for the Huacho area says that he has decided to request operations, has directed or ordered the respective order of operations be formulated. You can see it halfway down the paragraph. If you want, you can look at the Spanish version. This is an acknowledgement of receipt. Isn't this signed by the colonel? No, this is signed by Andres Andrade in the Sayan police station, but it says midway, halfway down the paragraph, that in this regard, PMP Colonel Chief of Huacho Dipol has ordered that the respective order of operations be formulated. Do you see that? Yes, I do. And the order of operations is the same as an operations plan, right? No, it's not. What is an order of operations then? The order of operations are actions that are implemented based on the national plan. The national plan is at this level, and the units below this level, below the police, have the orders of operations. This is on a daily basis, and they go based on topics, prevention, whatever that would be, drug trafficking. So that's an order of operations. So the order of operations is a provincial, local level. The national plan is the large umbrella, under which each agency has its order of operations. I thank you, but I think that we are talking about quite a low level. We are not talking at the level of national plans. We are talking at the level of the decisions by the Huacho chief. Therefore, this is an order, or the order of operations, the respective order of operations. You were not informed of this order of operations, were you? Well, the Vice Minister does not need to be kept abreast of this type of order. Yes or no? It's very easy. But were you aware of this when you prepared yourself for the meeting? I understand you didn't. That is of January 24th, 2019. No, I wasn't aware of this. Let us look at R113. This is at 58, tab 58. And this report is 07/2020. This is page 2 of 21, and this refers to some background information known to the police much later in 2020, but this is useful to see exactly what the police was aware of. And at page 5, you would see paragraph 6 then. Can you read it? Yes, I can read it. This is dated November 18th. You don't need to read it. You don't need to read it aloud.
¿Lo ha leído? Sí.
Can we read it? Yes. It refers to a plan of operations that was looking to clear up the roadway that had been occupied since 14 October. You see that? Yes. And then at the end, it says that the plan did not go forward because of the impediment on the part of the members of Paran rural community and in order to avoid the social cost. You see that? Yes. The reference to social cost has to do with the potential negative repercussions that this could have on society in general because of this idea that the police was not acting appropriately or fairly. Your appreciation is not correct. If there is a social cost, my understanding is that this is a problem that goes beyond, or rather a consideration that goes beyond whether an intervention or not should happen in accordance with the law. Other broader considerations have to be taken into account, and the decision of not to intervene needs to be made. Yes or no? The situation is the following. That is why they say on day D, hours H, because it has to do with if this is allowable. If there are risks, the potential risks, the police is not going to intervene. There are many individuals there that may become victims of the action, of the intervention. From my experience in the field of the police, what you are taught is that as a police force, you need to minimize risks. That is a concept that every police person knows. And you have to look at the scenario, gather information. If the moment is the right time, you're going to act. If not, you're not going to act. Thank you. But Paran was armed. Is that right? I have no personal knowledge of that fact that Paran was armed. I'm telling you this. The community members of Paran were armed. They had army weapons. They had perhaps their own weapons. They were heavily armed. I can show you a document that evidences this. In fact, in this very same document, we can go to page 2, please. And it talks about the 19 June invasion. On the 18th? Are you looking at this? 19 June 2018. Thank you. A group of 250 to 300 community members of the rural community of Paran went up to the mine. Amongst them, the leaders, including the president of the rural patrol. They had short and long-range firearms, pistols, revolvers, breech-loading shotguns, and carbines. And violent acts ensued. It says here that the Paran community leaders and the Paran community, all of those individuals were armed, correct? Just a clarification. When they say armed, who are armed in the population? Again, what a police person does is to verify. He has to see who has the weapons. We cannot say that out of 300 individuals, all of them were armed. Who of them were armed? It says here that the president of the rural patrol was there. It says that the leaders were there. There was a mob of 250 to 300 members. When it's identifying here the male leaders of the community, it says here the men were the ones who entered carrying short and long-range firearms, pistols, revolvers, breech-loading shotguns, and carbines. The same ones who, without any authorization, entered the camp of the company demanding an inspection. And then details are given of the violent acts that took place on that date. So, the police itself identified the individuals bearing arms. Did you know about this? What the police is saying is that the leaders were there. They're not saying that each one was carrying a pistol or a carbine. Who was carrying those weapons? At any rate, the Paran community members had pistols in the presence of these leaders and to their full knowledge and under their authorization. Please recall that we're talking about a fact. We're not talking about flagrancy here. This is a version of the facts. They're not talking about a current fact. They're talking about a past fact. That's not flagrancy. That event was known by the prosecutor's office, and as a consequence, you have a prosecutor's office report, and that's the path they should have tread, not dealing with the police.
Would it be possible that we take a 5-minute break at this
Sure,
point?
sir. Thank you.
Let's rise for 5 minutes. Mr. Saveda, we will take a very short break now. You're free to leave the room, but you should not discuss your testimony with anyone during this 5-minute period. Is that agreeable, sir?
Thank you very much. It's agreeable.
Very much. See you in 5 minutes.
With apologies, Mr. President, I was just trying to see how I could cut to the chase here and make this a little bit more efficient.
Appreciate that. A worthwhile thing to do.
Thank you for the opportunity to do that, and just like to raise that whether it would be possible to see Mr. Leon after Mr. Saavedra. I'm very conscious that that would be a switch, but if he is available, then, and if we can finish with Saavedra earlier than we had scheduled, then it would be very much welcome to be able to cross-examine Mr. Leon straight away. Is that possible?
Yes, I think that that would be possible. If you can give us a sense, general rough sense of timing, just to make sure that we're able to have him ready and not waste any time.
Well, I think it would be shortly before lunch and shortly after lunch.
Okay, can you give me just one? Well, I believe that, yes, that would be possible. Yes.
Thank you very much for that flexibility.
Mr. President, your mic is on. After the 24 January meeting with Mr. Bravo, Luis Bravo, reference is made to it in your witness statement. You had a WhatsApp discussion with Mr. Bravo. You recall that? Yes. Let us look at that WhatsApp exchange. It's at tab 21 of the folder you have there. This is Exhibit C-192. And starting on February 5, Mr. Bravo starts sending messages to you. And at 9:59, 17 seconds, Mr. Bravo says, to date, we still have a blockade in place and cannot access the camp. We had a meeting at the request of MEM last week with the governing committee on the community, but in the end, we could not sign an agreement because they do not want to lift the blockade. Unfortunately, in spite of the steps taken with General Arata and Colonel Arbudu in Huacho, we have not been able to advance with the operational plan to regain control of the operation. Do you see that? Yes. And here, Mr. Bravo is asking you for help. Is that right? He's not asking me for help. He's just telling me what's going on. He's not coming to me and saying, help me. On the next day, Mr. Bravo insisted on this. Let us see what the answer is. Luis Felipe, good evening. I have not forgotten your issue. Sorry for not responding earlier. I just spoke with General Arata, who told me the following. This at 10:53:07 p.m. of February 6th. Do you see that? Yes, I do recall. Then it says, 1. The colonel is working on the issue I understand that it means that the colonel's working on the operational plan. No. What is the issue then? The conflict that they're having in general. It is the conflict. That's the issue. That's his issue. It says that the colonel is working on the issue and is going into the area, but sometimes there are problems due to the rainy weather, which does not make access easy. And then it says, 2. The colonel, with the prosecutor, an official of the NDGOP, Mininter, and a leader from the Peruvian community will enter the mine on 8 February to check the existence of dynamite. 3. That he has no proof whether or not there is dynamite in the mine's explosive magazine, and that is why it is important that the prosecutor and the PNP verify this. 4. That on Saturday, the 9th, General Arata will have a report on the situation, which will be used as an input for the next decision made. It appears that here a coordination is taking place with General Arata. Yes or no? What I am reporting here is what's shown here in this conversation. Yes, it's valid. What's being discussed here is valid. Yes, but I think that you are coordinating things with General Arata. Yes or no? Not so much coordinating at every single moment. If somebody puts a problem to me, I have to find out what's going on. That's the minimum that I should do. Why is it that that was the minimum that you should do? Because please recall that a country needs investments, and one of the functions of the ministry is to guarantee the investments and the area where the investments are located, and that is one of our functions. So here you were Assistant Mr. Bravo that represented the investor. The function is the function of protecting the community, both private individuals and public persons that come to your office. You need to address them. You did not say, this is not within my authority, go to talk to General Arata or Colonel Argulu. That's why I'm saying he's talking with Mr. Argulu. But it is not within my authority what Mr. Arbulu has to do. But you are reporting that the general is talking to Mr. Arbulu. That's what the general told me. And the colonel, the prosecutor, they're going to go up to the community to see whether they went and see what was inside the magazine, okay? Yes, I repeat what they're saying to me. It appears that if Paran had access to the magazine, that would be used for a decision to be made, correct? If the prosecutor goes there, okay, yes, the prosecutor is the one that prosecutes the crime. Don't forget that. And on 8 February of 2019, the prosecutor went up with the police to the camp, right? Yes. And they went together with Invicta personnel. Yes, because the police must provide protection and prevent actions. And there is prevention here because the prosecutor is there, and the prosecutor wants the support of the police, and the police must provide that support. And you coordinated with Arata and Argulu for the Invicta staff members to be able to go up at that point in time. No, I don't have to coordinate that issue. Okay, so you're saying that that's a no. So let me show you. Please turn the page and look at 10:59, 52 seconds on February 6th. And it is say it is important that our people go up to be able to verify and provide information on the inventory and location of the explosives, since Paran can say anything and evade police and prosecutors' inspection. And then at 11:0908, you say, I don't think there is any issue for someone from the company to go. It's a matter of coordinating so that they can go together. Mr. Bravo, in turn, says at 11:10:41, tomorrow I will call Colonel Arbulu to coordinate with him, but this is Mr. Bravo who says this. But a call from the general to reinforce this is important. And then at 7:05:36, you say, okay, I'm going to call the colonel and the general again. I never communicated with the colonel. The only person I called on one occasion was General Arata, but after that I never spoke to any of them. Excuse me. We saw before that on the 6th you spoke with General Arata, and he summarized the things that we said he summarized. And then Mr. Bravo is asking you to have the Invicta personnel go there in connection with a prosecutorial inspection. And you say, okay, I'm going to call the colonel and the general again. I was not the one to coordinate whether a person from the company went up or didn't go up. They had to coordinate things with the prosecutor to go up with them. And the police didn't really have anything to do with that. Mr. Saavedra, you're not saying whether that was within their authority or not. But here you said that you were going to call the general again to coordinate that going up to the camp. That's a factual issue. Forget what the law says. Here, you coordinated directly with the general and with the colonel so that the Invicta personnel could go up there in connection with the inspection to be conducted by the prosecutor. Yes or not? It says this very clearly. I don't know how you can deny this. You are misstating what I said. It doesn't say that I spoke. It's in the future here. It's not that I spoke. It says I'm going to call. So you're telling me that you did not do this. No, I didn't do this. Why didn't you do it in spite of the fact that you expressed it? I was not in charge of coordinating these issues, whether an individual goes up there, doesn't go up there. A vice minister is not going to be in charge of these coordinating issues. That was something that they had to do, and they had to conduct the coordination with the prosecutor's office. But the personnel did go up there. Invicta's personnel did go up there together with the prosecutor that day. And the prosecutor verified that the magazine had been
No. Por lo tanto,
entered by the Paran people. You remember that? If the prosecutor verified this, the prosecutor had to act in accordance with the law. Remember that the police officers were accompanying the prosecutor. You should ask the prosecutor.
Let's continue. On the 13th of February, at 1:48 and 29 seconds, February. Yes. Mr. Bravo said, Dear Esteban, yesterday I was in Huacho with Colonel Arbulu looking at the alternatives and details to carry out the operational plan. He is very willing to support and carry out the operation. Since, after his visit on Friday, he now has a clear idea of the situation and that, despite his insistence on engaging in dialogue with the company, it's clear to him that they do not want to talk for now, or they want to do it so with the coercive measure in place. Once again,
Excuse me, but the they, I would read that as being they, the Peran people, but are you able to assist me?
Sorry, it's just a matter of the Spanish translation. Yes. I mean, it's clear to me. I will put it to the witness. Thank you, sir.
so we were reading. Once again, let's read this part of the exchange at 1:48 and 29 seconds. About halfway through, it says, he is very willing to support and carry out the operation since after his visit on Friday, he now has a clear idea of the situation. That despite his insistence on engaging in dialogue with the company, it is clear to him that they do not want to talk for now, or they want to do so with the coercive measure in place. Now here, when it says they do not want, that's a reference to the community of Peran. Is that right? I'm not sure. You'd have to ask who he called. They don't want to talk for now, or they want to do it with the coercive measure in place. Who might it be? It's unfortunate that throughout the hours that I was discussing with him, that all he wanted was the use of force as a solution for something that should be dealt with at a dialogue roundtable. It's striking that he constantly repeats an operation that he didn't have any reason to tell the police that they were going to do it. Thank you for that comment. This is a reference to the community of Peran, is that right? I don't know. No microphone.
Question.
Yes, certainly, sir.
So I'm asking the witness, if it's not the community of Peran, who do you suggest the they is?
Well, if you allow me, as it was written by the person, I suppose that in that context it would be those who were mounting an opposition. I could assume so, but that would merely be a supposition.
Just for the benefit of my fellow members of the tribunal, as a matter of Spanish language, the only possible interpretation here is that they refers to the community of Peran. There is no other plural subject that it could be referred to in the context.
And Counsel, I do have a question on this particular document before you leave it, so just if you could signal before you move off it.
Sir, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this document still, for a few more questions. If it's in relation to this particular paragraph, maybe you'd like to ask it. If not, I'll move on and I'll signal as you have suggested.
Well, my question is simply, who was General Arata? Where was he in the hierarchy? Why was he being consulted?
El general Mario Arata.
General Mario Arata is the general who is the chief of the entire region of Lima, and Huacho fell within his jurisdiction, and therefore the colonels who were in those provinces had the duty to communicate to him. And at 1:49 and 8 seconds, Mr. Bravo says he is only waiting to confirm the support of the Special Forces of Lima to be able to set the date. That's 13 February 2019. Now, what are the USES in Spanish? Those are the Special Services units, but that is something he said. It's not the police who said the Special Forces were going to go. Yes, that same day, 13 February, Mr. Bravo indicated at 2:02 and 11 seconds. Finally, yesterday, Colonel Arbulu informed us that he had received a call from Ms. Evelyn Tello from the Ministry of Interior indicating that a meeting was going to take place with the MEM to insist on dialogue. We spoke with the people of the MEM, Fernando Trigoso, and there was no meeting. We were at the MEM, and they do not see a negotiated exit for now, but we are discussing scenarios for dialogue for the day after public order is reestablished. And then he continues, 13 February at 2:03 and 4 seconds. It is worrying that the insistence of Ms. Evelyn Tello would delay the operational plan that is now ready. Ms. Evelyn Tello worked under you, is that right? No. In any event, she was a subaltern, a subordinate within the Ministry of Interior, correct? Yes. And you did not respond to this WhatsApp message until the 15th, 2 days later, and you, that day, on the 15th of February at 5:35 and 3 seconds, you said, Luis Felipe, I spoke with General Mario Arata, who told me that the community has presented a letter to the MEM agreeing to sit down and talk. They await the dialogue. And then 2 minutes later, at 5:37 and 53 seconds, you say this is in line with the procedures that are followed in the treatment of this type of event. That is, before the police must not intervene and must respect the dialogue. So you did speak with Mario Arata a second time, right? I'm saying something that is being reported to me by the... Yes, I am saying what the Directorate for Conflict Prevention is saying, that a letter was received to reinitiate the dialogue. That is, that those who are involved should reinitiate the dialogue, the company and Paran. Excuse me, did you not speak with General Arata? No. Here it says clearly, I spoke with General Mario Arata. You say so directly. Excuse me. That information came through a public order, which is who spoke with the persons. Because I said I spoke with him. The only occasion on which I spoke with him was when he was shown the points that say 1, 2, 3. At any rate, what's being transmitted here is that because Paran presented a letter, it was decided not to carry out the operational plan. Do you agree? The operational plan was not known to me because it was not up to me to have knowledge of an operational plan. And I don't know if there was an operational plan for that at that time.
Señor testigo. Oh, I'm sorry.
Who's first? Who's first? Oscar.
Señor testigo.
Mr. Witness, this exchange of communication mentions Ms. Evelyn Tello of the Ministry of Interior. Could you tell us what was the function of Ms. Evelyn Tello at that time? Very well. Ms. Evelyn Tello worked in the Directorate for Conflict Prevention, and she had her boss, who was a director, a professional, who follows up on, monitors, and sounds alerts on conflicts, doesn't have the authority to make decisions on a plan or not. Who was the director to whom Ms. Evelyn Tello reported? I think it was Manuel Rios. Manuel Rios. And Manuel Rios would report to you? Yes, that's right. Thank you.
Inquiry is whether the special forces are an arm of the police or some other entity.
Las unidades especiales.
The special units we were discussing earlier are special units of the police, correct? Yes?
If convenient, you could go about 10 more minutes, and then we'd take a 10-minute break, if that fits with your plan, and if not, you'll do something else.
I'm just having a look to see how I can cut down this. Thank you, that's much appreciated, sir.
Then Mr. Bravo, in summarizing, or to summarize, tells you that this is no more than a delay tactic by Paran, having presented a letter. And you, in turn, well, let's see what you answer. On the 15th of February at 7:45 and 27 seconds, you say, or 7:47 and 27 seconds, you say the issue of the conflict has is drawing attention from many corners in the country. I understand that you are bothered and indignant. We're at the end of the chain, and for that reason, we'd like the actors to do their job. And that is the path we find ourselves on. There must be some political instruction or teaching in the Congress to issue laws. If we don't stick to the protocol on the use of public force and their consequences, that will explode in the country, and the national press and international press will pick up on that, so we must be scrupulous. So let's take this in parts.
Can the witness be asked to comment on the statement at 7:39 and 59 seconds?
Seven.
7:39 and 59 seconds.
Before going on to this other bit, sir?
Yes.
Thank you. Vea, por favor, el extracto. Cambie el canal de intérprete, por favor.
If you could please take a look at the excerpt of 15 February at 7:39 and 59 seconds. Mr. Bravo says, if this is not problem is not resolved this week, the rival communities together and belonging to the Pacho district have agreed last Tuesday to defend their lands against Paran. On Monday, they will give them a 48-hour ultimatum to leave the area. Otherwise, they will act probably next week with a lot of violence, as has happened in the past between these communities. And you answer at 7:40 and 36 seconds. Jose Luis, I will ask at the MEM about the letter and I will notify you. One of the members of the tribunal has asked you to comment on this part. In particular, here you are saying that, yes, you've acknowledged receipt of this communication and you're going to ask the MEM about the letter. Was it within your authority to consider this conflictive situation as between the communities? The conflict or conflictivity among the communities is seen in the context of that rule on conflicts, not because the public forces are not necessarily going to intervene just because there's a conflict of that sort. What I'm saying there is if there's going to be a dialogue, because they're talking about a letter, it's possible that they'll refer to that issue. And second and most important is that Mr. Luis Felipe Bravo was playing with two arms. On the one hand, he would go to the Ministry of Energy and Mines with one discourse, and on the other hand, he sought the intervention of the police. And at that time, a letter was being prepared that was for the 26th of February. So he had everything organized. He was following a plan. So what I told him, in order to emerge from it, that I would find out, but I never did actually contact anyone. That's why you have the partners of with the different directors, and I didn't need to. He didn't have to have spoken. I didn't have to have spoken with the vice minister. I didn't have to ask about the matter of that nature. That was being handled by the directors. In any event, you say you're going to ask MEM. Yes. Let's go back to 7:47 and 27 seconds. And you're saying we're at the end of the chain. Here you're referring to, it's a reference to you at the Ministry of Interior, correct? No. When he says we're at the end of the chain, what else is he saying? What else might he be saying? Because we're saying that when the situation got complicated and there's flagrancy, the ones who need to step in are the national police. That is why each of them made an effort for that issue to not reach that level of crisis, and hence the need to intervene in a timely fashion with dialogue forums to avoid such risks. Excuse me, but you're saying we are at the end of the chain. It seems quite clear that it's at least the vice ministry. No, when I say we, we're talking about the sector. The ministry has the Ministry of Interior, National Police, Immigration, Explosives, and firefighters. So we're talking about the whole of what we are. So the Ministry of Interior is at the end of the chain, and that is why we want the others to do their job. And we're on that path. Who are the others? The MINEM. Don't forget that what conflict prevention does is get the information and pass it on to the corresponding sector. In this case, on this specific issue, it was up to mining. They were the ones who had the authority. Excuse me, and then you say we have to have a public presence in the Congress in terms of to look at the laws. The law, you're saying with this, my hands are tied. The law requires that we proceed in this fashion, and I wish it were not the case that the law would have to change if there were to be a police intervention. Is that not what you're saying, that our hands are tied? Which is what was wanted from the very first meeting that Mr. Bravo had with me. He wanted that to happen. That's what he thought could happen, or could be done.
Opportune time,
You give me 5 more minutes, sir?
of course.
Sí, es lo que le está pidiendo el señor Bravo, pero usted está diciendo...
Yes, that's what Mr. Bravo is saying, but you were saying, excuse me, Mr. Bravo, we need to do political teaching in the Congress to hand down laws. We need to change the laws. What needs to happen here is an intervention. We have armed people here, and what one had to do was to intervene. Nonetheless, I cannot do so. We need to teach in the Congress so that the laws can be changed. I think that's what you're saying. Is that not right? That's your interpretation, which I respect. Well, very well. When you were saying that we need to have political lobbying in the Congress or political instruction in the Congress to hand down laws, what are you saying? That if he was not happy with in terms of our response to what he wanted us to do, that one had to change the rules. We could not simply make use of force from the outset, which is what he wanted us to do. And then you say, if we stick to the protocols on use of force and there are consequences, these will have consequences in the country, and the national and international press will do their thing, which is why we must be scrupulous. So here you're referring to the national and international press, right? I'm referring to proper compliance. No, I'm sorry. You state the national and international press. You say that. And you were saying that if there are consequences, such as anybody being killed, that would be reported to the press. Is that not what you're saying? Because of failing to stick to the protocol. Because remember, I began by speaking about the protocol. And that this would have a negative impact on the country's image, right? If one doesn't properly carry out the law, then anyone might think that their rights are being violated. At any rate, that would have a political cost, right? If there were a police intervention, that's what you're saying? That's your interpretation. Indeed, we can see that in the demonstrations that took place in Lima in November of 2020, and that ended up with your resignation, and the Minister of Interior as well, specifically on 15 November 2020. Is that not so? I don't understand where you're going with your question. You had to resign on 15 November 2020 in the wake of some demonstrations that were held in Lima, and indeed there was a major police intervention to counter those demonstrations, and you had to step down as a result of that. Yes or no? It's not up to me to analyze whether it was in that context or not, because that's a different context, a different situation, different from Peru. There were 200,000, 300,000 people in the streets. It's not the same thing compared to an issue of somebody bringing an environmental claim, which was their claim, and the most important one. In Peru, one respects the right to protest. Protest properly, and that is, well, if you read the points included in the statement when the man from Invicta went, he says that in a sign of protest they've taken the roads. That's what he says, and the protest is guaranteed by the Constitution.
Thank you for your patience.
All right, let's rise for a 10-minute break then. Thank you. Again, sir.
I think we can just proceed in the interest of time, sir. We are
Mr.
under
Co-reporter, I'm sorry, we cannot start.
we are under a very tight schedule.
We're missing the Spanish language reporters. Okay, as soon as the reporters are ready, we will resume. We're okay on English? We're okay on Spanish? Okay, very good. All right, back to you, sir.
Señor Saavedra,
Mr. Saavedra, we were talking about your resignation of November 2020. That resignation was due to some protests. I think that we agreed with that, right? No? At any rate, that was due to the police intervention against individuals who were demonstrating, and you already said they were 200,000, 300,000 individuals, but that was due to that, right? No? What was the reason of your resignation? Because every time a minister changes, a vice minister also have to offer their resignation, and I offered my resignation. But you exercise your power through two different ministers. Answer: 5. Question: therefore, what you just said is not true, that every time that a minister changes, the vice minister changes. No, that what you are saying is not correct. If you want, I can clarify it. I asked you about circumstances. Every time a minister changes, the vice minister also changes. That's what you told me. And then I asked you. But then you have worked with several ministers, and you said, yes, 5. So I am trying to understand your answer. So you're saying that resignation was due to some police protest in November 2020, correct? No. We offer our resignation, and then the minister accepts it or not. The other ministers confirm me in my position, and I stay with them. So if they don't accept the resignation, one stays in the position. When they accept, one leaves. So in this case, due to those events, the minister resigned, and I understand that that led to your resignation too. No, I offered my resignation with the arrival of the new minister, Mr. Vargas, Ruben Vargas, because you should recall that that day we were left without a president, without a prime minister, without a minister, and the vice minister Saavedra of internal order was the only one who was there. So when Mr. Ruben Vargas arrived as the minister, as I should have done, I offered my resignation, and he had to ratify me or not in my position. He did not confirm me in my position, so I left. And that change in the administration was due to these events of November 2020, correct? Yes, as you may understand, there was a change of administration. There was a change of president, there was a political change. Would it be possible to clarify what president we are referring to, because many of us are not familiar with politics in your country. Thank you very much. We had so the president, the incumbent, resigned and Mr. Merino took office. Was Kuczynski the one in power? No. It would be the regional governor, Martín Vizcarra. Martín Vizcarra. Martín Vizcarra presented his resignation, and Merino came into office. Merino was there for a few days, and he resigned due to the topics that you just mentioned. Then, when Merino resigned, the prime minister, the minister, and all of the ministers left on that day. That day was terrible. We were left with nothing. And then Mr. Sagaste came into office. Sagaste came to an... After Sagaste, then we had Castillo, I think. So I understand that Mr. Merino, I think you said, resigned because of these events, because of this police intervention against the demonstrators and the political turmoil that ensued because of this. The reasons for his resignation are beyond my area of concern. He resigned, and I didn't need to know why he resigned. At any rate, there was a political price to pay due to that police intervention. That's your appreciation. Do you agree? Do you disagree with that point of view? We're not discussing here whether I agree or not. But do you disagree? You are a fact witness. I am a witness of a fact in Paran, but I am not the witness of a political fact. You are a witness in connection with any fact of which you have knowledge, Mr. Saavedra. There are no restrictions here in connection with what I can ask you, except that it has to be relevant and it has to be within your knowledge. So this question meets those requirements, and this is the reason why I'm asking you this. When I was invited to appear as witness, I was given the scope of my testimony. I am not a lawyer to tell you whether it was a political issue or not. At any rate, you seem to agree with me, or at least you do not deny it. Let us now look at the document that we saw before at 58, tab 58. This is R113, and we are going to look at page 7, paragraph 15, pages 7 and 8. This document refers to an operations plan of February 9th for the preservation of public order that was about to be implemented in Paran, and because this was going to be blocked, or this had been blocked as of October 14th. And then it says, since the inability of the Since the impediment on the part of the members of the Peruvian rural community in order to avoid the social cost, the execution was not possible. So the implementation was not possible. So once again, we're talking about the social cost, the social price to be paid. So here we seem to be reading that the police had a plan to unblock the road. The road was blocked by Peruvian community members, but this plan is not implemented because of the social price to be paid. Is this correct? If you go back to the previous paragraph, you are going to see that the day of, it is at hours H. What is at hours H? And at any rate, I would like to look at that plan, because if the time is known, you include it. So what does it mean, day D, hours H? So it could have had an issuance date. I am not a police officer, but because of my experience, it could have an issuance date, but it doesn't have an implementation date. And the implementation date is because of the decision by the chief of operations, who will determine whether something is going to be done or not, bearing in mind the risks. Now, since you are answering in this fashion, we are going to look at paragraph 26. Page 10. There you mention, and the same is being said, but paragraph 26. But now, instead of referring to the D-Day and H hours, it is saying June 5th, 2019 at 9 hours. Do you see that? And towards the end, it says again, exactly the same, that it won't be implemented because of the social price to be paid. Are you looking at this? Yes, I am looking at the origin of the document. This is not the operations plan, it's a report. This is just a subsequent document. This is what we read in the report. This is not something I should look at. This is not something that I know of. It says at the police level. So the vice minister does not need to have knowledge of this, and I didn't have any knowledge of this. But before this, you were telling me about the way the police acted, because you were saying, no, here the police did not participate. This was completely, or the time and date were not final, and therefore it was not relevant. But now I am showing you the time and date in connection with the same situation, and the time and date is June 5th, 2019. And once again, we hear that there was no intervention because of the social price to be paid. And I wanted to talk to you about this social price to be paid, because I understand that the lack of intervention is because there is a political cost. Well, that has to do with the author of this, not me.
Thank you, sir. Over to, no.
We have no questions on redirect.
All right, let me ask whether my colleagues have any questions.
do have one.
Please.
Mr. Saavedra, in some of the documents that you were shown, there was reference to the conflict between the Puran community and the other two communities, and the possibility for that conflict to lead to more violent measures by the other communities to defend what they considered to be their territories. That was the background. You were aware, as Vice Minister, of a conflict between the Puran community on the one hand and the Laxanga and Santo Domingo communities on the other hand, as to the extent, as to the limits, the boundaries of the lands. Is this correct? Were you aware of that? I thank you, sir. I learned of that as a result with a conversation with Mr. Bravo, who told us that there was a territorial situation, that there were some claims and rights. And why? Because at the outset, the mining company, in very good faith, attempted to work with Puran. But later on, they had some disputes, and they looked for a way out with the other communities, and they offered that exit. But I'm not talking about the mining company. I'm asking about the community conflict. Were you aware of the conflict among the communities? No, I was not. Do you know if there is anybody, any agency within the state that is intended to settle those differences, those disputes, territorial disputes regarding boundaries among the communities? I am not a lawyer, I am not an expert, but I know that there is a land demarcation, and this is known by the media, and also there are some difficulties that are known throughout the country in connection with the boundaries. Now, do you know if that same agency or another state agency is meant to facilitate the negotiation among the communities in connection with their boundaries? That would be as a conciliator, as a mediator, as to the institutions. That is, you have if it is an agricultural issue, agriculture will deal with it. If it is mining, this is something led with mining. If it is oil, this is led by the oil area. And if it is a road demarcation, this is within the transportation unit. But how about the limits between one unit and the other one? Is there any agency within the state that is meant to help the community come to terms with the problem, settle the problem? Well, the Ministry of Culture does have an area that is in charge of looking for legislation that has to do with native and old cultural relations, but I don't know much about this. I know when it is something related to culture, spaces, tradition. Thank you.
Last line of paragraph 26 on tab 58 says that in order to avoid the social cost, its execution was not possible. Are you able to tell us from that paragraph or otherwise who made the decision not to carry out the exercise, the operation?
Based on my experience as a police officer, this has to be seen by the chief of the operational command, who is the one to determine whether the operation is going to be completed or not. So you have the operational command, the one that is on the field, the one that determines whether something is going to be carried out or not. That's based on my police experience. Now, in this case, it must have been that way. They must have been the ones who determined that it was not possible. That party is the party that is on the field and the one that will be sued or will be the subject of a criminal process if there is one. So there has to be a lot of awareness to realize whether the conditions are proper or not for an intervention to take place.
I think we have no further questions, and so we thank you, sir, for your testimony. You are excused. You may now resume normal conversations with anyone you choose. So we thank you very much for assisting us today.
Muchas gracias por su tiempo.
I thank you for the time and also the openness to listen to what I said. But whatever I said it candidly.
Buenos días.
You all have a good morning.
And the same to you, sir. All right. To our All right, next step. I think it was anticipated that Mr. Leon would be on next. Okay. Good day, sir. Can you identify yourself for the record, please? Right.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nilton Cesar Leon Huerta.
And we welcome you here today to assist us. Before you, there should be a declaration. Do you have that? Are you hearing me, sir?
Yes, Mr. President.
There should be a document in plastic with a declaration on it. Do you have that, sir? Could you read that declaration out loud, please?
I solemnly declare upon my honor and conscience that I shall speak the truth, the whole truth, and only the truth.
Thank you for that, sir. The procedure that will be followed today, you will first be asked some questions, a short series of questions, by counsel for Peru. You will then be examined by counsel for the claimant. There may then be a final set of questions from the lawyers from Peru. Are you clear on this procedure, sir?
Yes, Mr. President.
If at any time you feel that you need to take a break to leave the room, please let us know and we will accommodate. All right, are we ready to begin then? All right, over to counsel for respondent.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Leon. You submitted 2 witness statements in this case. I'm sure you have them there with you. The first, 22 March 2022, and the second, 20 January 2023. I'm going to ask you to please look at the first statement, the one from March 22, 2022, and please let us know whether this is your statement and if you ratify its contents. They're in English. These are in English. It's behind a blue sheet. The Spanish version is. Yes, that's my statement. Would you like to make any corrections to this first statement? No. We're going to do the same thing with the second one of 20 January 2023. Could you please confirm whether this is your statement and whether you ratify its contents? Yes, that's my statement. Would you like to introduce any corrections to it? No. Okay, thank you very much. We have no further questions. Good morning, Mr. Leon. Good morning. My name is Jaime Gallego. And we're going to be discussing a number of issues with you. This is an artificial environment, so to speak, and we have to follow some rules so everyone knows what we're talking about. The first rule is that we have very limited time. That is why I'm asking you to please answer my question specifically. The second thing is that we are here dealing with interpreters that need to switch channels between English and Spanish so the tribunal may follow what we are saying. For the purpose, I'm going to ask you to please take a pause after my question is asked before answering the question. I'm going to do the same. That way, everyone's going to be able to follow what we are saying. Could you please let me know how you prepared for this hearing briefly? Very well. I have reviewed documents that were sent to me by the Social Management Office. I work for that office currently in Peru. I have looked at the aide-memoirs and the internal documents, as I said, and more than anything, I looked at the account of the facts that took place in the dialogue that the dialogue took place between Paran and Invicta. I understand that you also talked to Peru's external counsel. Yes, correct. And with other public officials of Peru in connection with your testimony. I spoke to other people that no longer work for the office, trying to refresh my memory in connection with the facts that transpired. Do you talk to any senior officials in connection with your statement? A superior of yours? What do you mean? There's a coordinator at the office. We have the head of line. He's the head of the Citizen Participation Office. And then we also have the vice ministers and the ministers. That's the organizational structure. And my statement is related to the facts in which I have been involved, with which I have been involved in my capacity as social specialist.
Durante el desempeño de sus funciones,
While you were in your position, you said that numerous times you went to the project site. And you also went to Sayan, Huacho, and to the community of Paran. Isn't that true? That's correct. And you said that this first meeting with the community leaders of Paran was in 2018, 11 August, correct? Correct. Do you know that there was a meeting on 28 July 2018? Does that ring a bell? That meeting happened in Santo Domingo de Apache. It wasn't with Paran, it was a meeting with Paran? 22 July, you said? It was with Santo Domingo de Apache. You were present in the meetings of October and November 2018, right? With Paran. That's correct. Paran lodged a number of complaints to withdraw complaints and to recognize the damage, environmental damage, and to use the Paran roadway, correct? Yes, correct. And Invicta asked for the blockade to be lifted and for the operations to stop, right? Yes. And you intervened in those meetings to explain about the advantages of having a roundtable discussion and also to reach an agreement. Yes, that's correct. And you also asked Paran to lift the blockade of the railway and reiterated that dialogue should not take place with the blockade. I didn't understand the question. Okay, so you urged Paran to lift the blockade, and you said that the dialogue should not take place while the blockade was in place. Yes, that's correct. That urging by you to Paran and by the OGGS, that was something that was constant in the meetings you held with Paran, correct? Correct. I'm talking about the meetings of 29 January 2019, 26 February, and 26 March, right? That's correct, yes. This because the petition of Invicta seemed to you logical and reasonable to set up a discussion table. It was necessary for the blockade to be lifted. That's right. I would like to put my answer into context. Yes, but before you have to say yes or no. Yes. Yes, what you have been stating, or you have stated is correct. But if you give me the possibility, I would like to say, Mr. President, that within the OGGS, we always ask the parties in this case, that is to say the communities that are conducting the blockade of roadways, we always ask them to start the process by clearing the roadways, by lifting the blockade. That's what we ask of the communities. Oftentimes, and this does not happen, but that is a request that we always do at the outset. In this case, we asked that the roads be cleared of the blockade. And we also asked that they stop not letting the company go up to the mining unit. Excuse me, the interpreter didn't get the question. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Can you repeat your question, please? We're having... Going forward, let's take a moment's time before you begin to answer a question, because the question's being interpreted to us in English. We need a little time for that to happen. So pause, take a deep breath before you start to answer, if you would, please, sir. Thank you. Can we have the question again, please?
Did it seem logical to you and reasonable to you that Invicta asked that for a discussion table to be established, the blockade had to be lifted? And you answered yes. And then you provided some comments. And then I asked you, Paran constantly refused to do so. And I understand that you also said yes to that. That for the benefit of the tribunal. I want the tribunal to have this clear in their minds. Would you like to add anything? Yes. What you're saying is correct. You did not urge anything in connection with the inadequacy of your community relations team in connection with Invicta. I didn't understand your question. Yes, I'll repeat it. Invicta was not urged to do anything in connection with the inadequacy of the CR team, correct? It's CR team, Invictus, correct? Correct. In your statement, you say that you were surprised to see that the claimant says that Paran had no intention to reach an agreement with Invicta because it wanted to protect its marijuana business. You recall that? You remember that in your statement? That was said to us at a meeting that we held at the OGGS in the presence of the other bodies of the state. Yes, that's correct. Let us look at your statement. Paragraph 60 of your statement, and I think it's your second statement. Yes, indeed, it's your second statement, paragraph 60 and 61. If we look at paragraph 60, you make reference to a number of arguments made by the respondent in connection with marijuana and the operation of the mine. And at paragraph 60, you begin by saying, I was surprised to hear these arguments by claimant, including those related to an alleged marijuana business by the Peruvian community. And then at paragraph 61, you continue talking about this, and I would like to summarize what you're saying here, if you think that's okay. Yes. First, you say that Paran did not have a marijuana business, then that Invicta at no time expressed its concern in connection with an alleged marijuana business in Paran, and that this had an influence on the position that the community had. Is that what you're saying? Mr. President, I would like to look at the Spanish version of this document. Please repeat the question. Yes, of course. I was summarizing your testimony. First, you said that Paran did not have a marijuana business, and then the second thing you're saying is that Invicta at no time expressed concern related to an alleged marijuana business by Paran, or that that had an influence in the position of the company. That's right. Let's look at 41, tab 41 of the binder that you have right before you. You have to go to that binder. Do you have the document in Spanish right before you? Yes. We can see that there's an email here from you. It says temp OTGS 127. That's you, right? Yes, that's me. And you have sent this to Cesar Ulloa, correct? Yes, correct. On February 2019. And you attached to that email an aide-memoire, and the second page shows a series of remarks. And at the second paragraph talks about the social process that the mining company has with Paran is impaired by interests that are foreign to the state in connection with marijuana growers. The ministry knows about this and is activating the necessary mechanisms. Do you see that? Yes. It appears that you recognize here that there are marijuana plantations and that the production of marijuana is preventing a good faith negotiation, right? No, that is not what I'm saying in my statement. If the President allows me to do so, I can read this and then put my answer in context. Sir, I'm simply asking what it says here in this aide-memoire, right? Yes, but you're recognizing here that there are marijuana plantations that the social process that the mining company is maintaining with Paran is negatively impacted by this, right?
Veamos sus recomendaciones.
That's correct, Mr. President, that's correct. Yes, we can't hear the witness very well, and so the interpreters also didn't hear correctly because...
No lo he escuchado. Por favor, repita lo que ha dicho, señor intérprete.
I just said that sometimes it's hard to hear.
Si puede, por favor, hablar un poco más.
I'm going to ask you to please speak up. I know that you have the microphone really close to you, but you need to speak up, please, because if you don't, that's not going to be helpful. But if you do, it's going to be helpful. I asked you about this paragraph that talks about the social process that the mining company maintains with Paran is affected by the presence of interests outside the state, producers of local marijuana plantations. And in this connection, I asked you whether what you wanted to say here is that there are marijuana plantations in the community of Paran, first, and second, if this dialogue, this quote-unquote social process between Invicta and Paran, if that is being negatively impacted by this marijuana business, right? You can answer. Well, Mr. President, before providing an answer, I would like to contextualize this in connection with the reason and the causes that we, as the state, issued these kinds of documents.
Sir, you will, in due course, be asked further questions by lawyers for the respondent, and I think that might be an appropriate subject if they want to raise it. But I should assure you that we are quite familiar with the work of your office, with the record of this case, with the behavior of the parties. So I don't know that we necessarily need a great deal more context. But as we go forward, if you feel there are sort of specific facts that we need to be aware of, you should certainly bring that to our attention. But we have very little time here today, and we're very pressed to complete the work so that, for example, you can go back to Lima. So let's see if we can press on.
Yes, Mr. Leon, I was referring you to this paragraph, and I was asking you to confirm my understanding that the social process was affected by the marijuana business. I understand that you said yes, right? No, it was not being affected by the situation you have just referred. Excuse me, but here it says that the social process that the mining company maintains with Paran is affected by presence of interests outside the state, producers of local marijuana plantations. This has to do with the state and not with the mining process. What it's saying here is interests outside the state. So we're talking about things against the law. Yes. That is to say, there is an illegal business. This entails certain interests. These are illegal, and this is preventing a good faith negotiation between the company and Paran, correct? That's not true. At no time did the company, during the dialogues or the meetings, said that these kinds of illegal activities were adversely affecting the dialogue. At no time was that an obstacle for us as the government and for the community and the company to have a rapprochement. I'm not talking about what the company said. I'm talking about your assessment, your specific assessment of the situation that you are expressing here in this aide-mémoire, right? Are we understanding each other in this connection? This is your assessment of the situation. You understand that? Yes. Not only do you say this, but if we go to the next page, where it talks about the dialogue mechanisms are not to be are not appropriate in this case because the community leadership manages a double discourse with the government and its population, evidencing with this the presence and active participation of local actors who, in an economy outside the law, subsidize activities contrary to public order against the mining project. Do you see that? Yes. It appears that you are making a correlation between these facts here. First, you make comments in connection with the marijuana business within the community that is preventing dialogue, and then you say, my recommendation in this document is that that the dialogue process is not appropriate because of this marijuana business. That is what you are saying, right? Mr. President, if you take this into account, this document was issued on 20 February 2019, 6 days after the assessment I make in this document in connection with the lifting by the actors of the circumstances. And the community and the company came together and engaged in dialogue to lift the blockade after the issuance of this document. 6 days after the issuance of the document. So this document is a snapshot of the circumstances at the time. Would you please answer the question about this snapshot? On 20 February, in your opinion, the dialogue was, continuing with the dialogue was not appropriate. On the part of the government, the dialogue was always something that was asked. But internally, your recommendation, you're saying that the dialogue mechanisms are not appropriate. Mr. Leon, please. You're saying this clearly. Again, Mr. President, 6 days after, well, us as representatives of the government always thought that dialogue was the way in which the parties had to engage with each other and try to solve their problems. Now, what was the purpose of your preparing this aide-mémoire? These are internal documents. Aide-mémoires are. They are used to provide context to our superiors of the circumstances surrounding dialogue processes. When you're making reference to your superiors, are you talking about the senior officials of the ministry? Yes, this was sent, as my email indicates, to my coordinator, Mr. Ulloa. That's not what the email says. Well, the email doesn't really say anything.
The email is directed to Cesar Ulloa, who is my coordinator. So the idea of this aide-mémoire was to inform Cesar Ulloa, or was it to inform higher levels, specifically the highest levels officials at the Ministry of Energy and Mines through a filter which Mr. Ulloa was the filter. But the idea of the aide-memoire was for it to go to the senior level officials. Yes or no? The mechanism of the aide-memoires, which are internal documents, well, I send it to my coordinator, and then my coordinator has meetings with the director of the OGGS, depending on the time and space for dialogue. For during the time that the dialogue process lasted, there have been three heads of the OGGS, Mr. Fernando Castillo, Fernando Trigoso, and Miguel Cusma. I think that what you're telling me is that you constantly worked with Mr. Ulloa and that you would send an aide-memoire to Mr. Ulloa, the aim being for him to send it on to your superiors. Yes or no? That's right. And so analyze strategies for continuing the dialogues. Let's look at the next document.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
May I ask you, in your reference on towards the bottom of the second page, when you say Minotaur is aware of this problem and activating the corresponding mechanisms, could you say what your understanding is of what those corresponding mechanisms were that you referred to?
Yes, each state entity has its functions and its areas of competence. With respect to that, I can say that Ministry of Interior and we and at MINEM, we had information about marijuana plants, not of the community, but of some community members. And the Ministry of Interior people mentioned that they were going to take actions on that topic.
Tell us what your understanding of these actions. I mean, this is a reference to the Peran community. What actions did you have in mind when you said Minotaur is activating the corresponding mechanisms?
The representative of the ministry did not say what they would be, those corresponding mechanisms. He just said they were going to take action. He didn't tell me what they would be.
Y la señorita.
And Ms. Tello, I understand, found out about this through her coordination with the police, correct?
Por manifestación.
She knew that because of what representatives of the company had said. That they were going to take actions with respect to the marijuana, that the police were going to? I don't get your question. If here in your aide-memoire you are referring to, well, in the paragraph that we've seen that begins with the social process, it says Ministry of Interior is aware of this issue, the issue of the marijuana, and is activating the corresponding mechanisms. And in response to the arbitrator's question regarding how you found this out, you said it was communicated to me by Ms. Tello, correct? Correct, at the end of a meeting. And Ms. Tello, how did she find out? I don't know how she found out, but I would like to add that that issue was also taken up by or mentioned by the company at a meeting. In other words, you believe that as of 20 February, or by 20 February, the company had already discussed it with state entities, and that is why Ms. Tello also mentioned it. That I don't know. Yes, but you raised the company, so I want to understand, chronologically speaking, why it's raised in connection with this comment that you make here, that the Mininter is aware of this problem and is activating the corresponding mechanisms. It is the Mininter that's activating the corresponding mechanisms. I suppose it would do so on the basis of more than a simple comment by the company, correct? The issue that you refer to, having to do with marijuana, was one in which, I repeat, it wasn't of much interest in connection with the social conflict, and I would state that it was not considered a latent problem during the negotiations, and it did not affect the course of the negotiations. That's what I can say in response to your question. Well, I don't really understand what you are telling me, because you're noting it here at the 20 February memorandum that it is a problem, but let's continue then. And so you recall that the company did raise the marijuana problem as such. Correct, yes. Very well. Then you'd have to change your statement where you say that the company had never mentioned it. This is at paragraph 60, the last sentence. The company Invicta said nothing about concern about marijuana. You clearly state this, so this needs to be corrected, right? The context of my statement, sir, Mr. President, is that if we take the time to read the next paragraph, it was not a matter of concern to the company, the marijuana question, that is. It wasn't tied in with the social conflict. It was separate from the social conflict. And this is what I say if one continues reading my statement, this, where the attorney just cited it. Let us turn to tab 10, that's Exhibit C18.
Supplementary question. Having regard to your last answer, can you explain how that is consistent with the paragraph that I took you to on the second page of your aid memoir, where you refer to the social process with the mining company maintains with the Peruvian community is affected by the presence outside the state. Are those two statements inconsistent? What you just told us and this statement here, how do you reconcile them?
Sir, the impact has different degrees or levels. So there is an impact because marijuana production is outside of the law. It's an illegal activity, but it was not very weighty when it came to the dialogue process.
I was asking you, aren't you saying the opposite in your aid memoir? You say that it is affected. You don't need to answer the question if you can't, but that's the question.
Excuse me, sir, I didn't understand.
I was suggesting to you that the statement you make in paragraph 61 of your witness statement is inconsistent with your statement that the social process with the mining company maintains with the Peruvian community is affected by the presence of interests outside the state, producers of local marijuana plantations. Now, as I understand it, you're saying that those statements are not inconsistent. If that's your view, just say so.
The two statements have different contexts and time, sir. Well, let's turn to tab 10, please. And that's Exhibit C18. And let me mention that this is a meeting, or a meeting summary, of a meeting that happened on 27 May 2017. You were there with officials of the PCN, or 2019 rather. Mr. Bravo was there on behalf of Invicta. He was general manager. Also Mr. Velázquez, or rather Mr. Vasquez. And at 9.9, which is on page 5, number 9, you say that Invicta indicated that the Paran leaders are being advised and or financed by persons from outside the community with their own interests, drug trafficking, and informal mining mafias, with which, at this meeting, which seems quite formal because several state entities are represented, you are they're being told that there are interests from outside the law. Would you agree with me on that? That is what Mr. Bravo said, yes? With which there would appear to be some inconsistency with your statement where you say in any event at no time did Invicta argue express concern over alleged marijuana activity. Yes or no? That's correct. But I repeat, they did not say that that was a cause for the parties not sitting down or not reaching an agreement. Very well, Mr. Leon. Here we find ourselves in a desperate situation. This is May of 2019. 7 months have gone by, 7.5 months since the blockade. Invicta is saying here, it's stating its concerns here, the causes of the blockade, and it's saying clearly that there are illegal interests here. And it's saying there is drug trafficking and informal mining mafias who, what they want is to exploit the mine. He's seeing it clearly. He's saying it clearly. It's not a comment with no consequences. Rather, it's a comment that he's making precisely because they want to recover the project. And he's saying here that these people, the community members of Paran, don't want to negotiate because they have illegal interests in mind. The same exact thing you were saying in 20 February with your memo. Wouldn't you agree? May I make a clarification? The aide-memoire that you've put before me has the date of 27 February. As of that date, there had already been an agreement and a lifting of the coercive measure, which happened 26 February, 4 months after Paran began the blockade. This document that you are now putting before me as a reference does say what you are indicating, but it doesn't reflect the reality. There had already been a rapprochement and a lifting of the blockade. There was an understanding between the parties was reached on 26 February. Thank you, Mr. Leon, but on 20 March, they invaded the site, the Paran community members did, once again. Isn't that so? So once again, we are facing a coercive measure. No? The dialogues have that peculiarity. Any dialogue forum has its high points, its middle points, and its low points. And we always understood that that was the mechanics and the mechanism that unfolds in the context of a dialogue. At any rate, the only thing I wanted to point out here in showing you this document is that you state in your witness statement that they never said anything about it. The representatives of Invicta, that is, that there were unlawful interests related to marijuana production, and here it says that the leaders of Paran are being advised or financed by persons from outside the community with their own interests, drug trafficking and informal mining mafias. You're saying this directly, so is that simply to correct your statement? That's why we're looking at this, Mr. Leon, right? It's the reference is to leaders and not the community as a whole. In the alleged situation. Well, we have a little time, so we're talking here about a meeting that you had with the authorities, the same authorities that we're seeing here, who were present at this meeting, which was held as of 11:15 a.m. in Lima. And right before that, there was another meeting between just among the authorities of the state to prepare this. Do you recall that? I do not.
So, sure, sir.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm somewhat concerned about your statement in paragraph 60 that in any event at no time did the claimant or Invicta argue or express concern over alleged marijuana activity. Do I understand you correctly to say that when you look at paragraph 9 under tab 10 that you make a distinction between leaders raising this issue and non-leaders? What I suggest to you is that the statement, in any event at no time did claimants or Invicta argue or express concern over alleged marijuana activity, is it possible to read that as consistent with the statement in paragraph 9? You said there's a difference because it refers to leaders, but are you saying that that does not contradict your statement at the end of paragraph 60?
Correct. So let's go to the minutes of the meeting held ahead of time among the representatives of the various ministers. This is at tab 47 of the binder. It's at page 3. where it says current situation critical aspect. First, you come across the English language version, and then you get to the Spanish language original. "46, did you say?" I'm sorry, Mr. Leon, it's tab 47. Once again, we have an aide-memoire dated 27 May 2019, which has been drafted, it appears, by the Presidency of the Council of Ministers. And at page 3, under current situation critical aspect, mention is made of the meeting prior to the meeting with Mr. Bravo, and we know this because it says at 9 to 11 a.m., and then in the third paragraph it speaks of the subsequent meeting with Mr. Bravo, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Right? Yes? Well, and in that first meeting, you were mentioning several things. But at the end of the second paragraph, you say there is evidence of poppy marijuana crops in Paran, and in relation to the possession of weapons in the community, it is known that they have weapons that were handed over in the 1990s to the Rondas Campesinas and self-defense groups and others that have not been registered. It was suggested that the PNP schedule the corresponding search and seizure. Do you see that? Do you see that? Yes. So, just before the meeting with Mr. Bravo, even before Invicta mentioned that it was a concern of its, it was also being discussed internally that this was a problem, right? The issue of the marijuana crops. Yes, according to the date, 27 May. So for you all, it was a concern, the question of the marijuana crops. It was an impediment to reaching an agreement, correct? No, it is not. That is not correct. So why are they discussing it here? Here, there are several of you authorities who are in charge of the dialogue, including particularly you, and they're here discussing the situation in Paran. By now, by this time, 7 months have gone by, and you're about to meet with Mr. Bravo, and you're noting the important points that are standing in the way of progress being made in the negotiations. And two are mentioned. First, marijuana. Second, weapons. It seems to me that this was an important consideration on the part of the state in that meeting. Yes or no? As I repeat, Mr. President, the marijuana issue was not a priority that we had, as the state had mapped out in the context of that incident or that activity being at odds with the dialogue going forward. We did not understand that, nor did the company understand that. Had that been the case, then the then the company rather would have attached the copy of some complaint. This was a report on the circumstances that need to be put in context. These are situations that need to be mapped out in order to have a response in a different scenario. But I will state once again, the activity referred to was not the preponderant negative in the state going forward to establish a dialogue, since in February, 4 months after the takeover of the mine, we were able to establish a dialogue. Very well, and at this point 3 months had gone by since that, those minutes of 26 February 2019, several months had gone by, and we are in a situation, the situation that's being mentioned here, right? And here, well, you were at that meeting, and what's being said is that there's a concern over the weapons and the marijuana in the community. Can you confirm for me, please, that you did discuss that? It was just mentioned. And specifically, it was suggested that the National Police schedule the corresponding registration and search. That would appear to be a very important suggestion, don't you think? To be able to continue with the dialogue. Isn't that so? No, there was no nexus between the searches such as to have it be a requirement for continuing the dialogue. So, in other words, according to you, it was reasonable for the company to negotiate with drug traffickers and with people who were armed. That was the policy of the state, correct? That is not right. That's not correct. We could not very easily, Mr. President, because of 2 or 3 individuals, accuse a whole community of such a serious crime. I think it would be irresponsible on the part of the state, Mr. President, for us to take on that topic. What I can say, Mr. President, is that we, as the state, have always been in favor of dialogue, and that has been a constant throughout the process. And indeed, at least as long as Invicta was there, there was no search and seizure of the weapons, correct? I'm not able to say. In other words, you don't know? I don't know. And nor were the marijuana plantations eliminated while Invicta was there, correct? I don't know that, Mr. President. In other words, you were commenting during this meeting. It seems that that was a major discussion, and it was reiterated by Mr. Bravo, this issue, that is, at the meeting that happened immediately thereafter. And you are not aware of what happened with that in relation to the weapons as well as in relation to the marijuana plantations, correct?
Tal como usted refiere.
As you mentioned it, after May 27th, after the meeting we had, the Legal Office for Social Management continued with that up to September. I do not know whether, as part of that dialogue, they reach a mechanism on the issue of weapons and marijuana. So we would agree that up to September 2019, nothing was done in connection with these 2 issues. I do not know. I cannot assert or deny that. How can you not know this, since you were attempting to promote dialogue. You had to know all of the facts, all of the important facts, and also the factors that could have an impact on the dialogue. How can you say that, Mr. Leon? You just said it. It was not a gravitating issue, the issue of weapons and illicit weapon trafficking.
Lunch break, is this a convenient point for you?
It is, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
All right, then let us rise for 40 minutes. Mr. Leon, during the lunch period, you will not be able to discuss your testimony with anyone, and someone will take you to a nice place for a private lunch, and we will then see you in 40 minutes. Is that agreeable, sir?
Correcto, sí, está bien.
Good.
Yes, sir.